So is Julio Jones going to help the Titans?
Unless he can play corner. They can't stop anybody.
Yeah, they're going to have to outscore some people.
He's going to help them
As
out.
long
Let
as,
Henry actually run the ball and do his job.
Yeah, as long as game manager can be game manager.
I like Tannehill.
Yeah.
I mean, he's put up two good years.
He has. Can't believe it.
I mean, how many years do you think he has, though? I mean, you think he's past his peak? He's definitely past his peak.
Yeah, but how he plays, I mean, he could play forever.
Right.
I mean,
He doesn't really take numbers up.
He doesn't really take shots. So,
I like him.
Yeah.
Are you a Tannehill fan?
He can throw for his.
Since he's been with the Titans, yeah. I mean, I didn't really pay attention to him before that, but I do like.
Did he come? He went from Miami to us, right?
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Didn't we give up like a 6th-round pick? I mean, everybody was just beating down his door to get him.
Yeah, no, it's been a great move for the Titans. Yeah.
I don't know about their schedule.
I think it's kind of tough. Yeah.
I haven't looked at it.
I know they got a tough road, maybe, but they got a good division. No.
Since we've already gotten started, I guess we'll go ahead and make it official. Welcome into GPS to God. We are glad you are back. And we would love for you to like and subscribe. You can find us on YouTube. And we've actually made a change now. So we have our own YouTube channel. We're branching out, boys. So you can find us on YouTube. Finding us on YouTube at GPS to God. Just search that on YouTube and you can find us. We will still be on the Parkway Baptist Goodlettsville page, but we're trying to make it easier for the listeners to find us. So search GPS to God on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify, iTunes. Please make sure you like and subscribe. And we have a little contest, boys. This is a surprise for everyone in the room.
Except for you.
Except for me.
Rude.
Yeah.
Why is the boss?
I try to, I don't know about that, but, I try to keep you guys entertained as well as all the listeners. So we are going to give away some prizes.
Hey.
But that means some work has to be done on the listener end. The first 100 people to like GPS to God page on YouTube will be entered to win a gift card. 5 winners out of 100. That's pretty good odds.
I like it.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
I mean, it's probably only around 5%, but you know.
Do our wives count? I guess
Right.
Were they excluded?
It's the first 100 people that like the page, that subscribe to the page.
Okay.
And
see Grant's going to be subscribing.
And so
rack up
you're
on some gift cards.
going to create him an account.
If you subscribe, leave us a comment so we know that how to get back in touch with you. But
when Zoe wins this, we're coming straight for you for questions.
She's lucky. She's lucky.
So we're going to give away 5 gift cards, and then we're going to have a grand prize winner.
Hey.
Okay.
The grand prize winner gets to be on the podcast.
Nice. I like it.
So that's going to be
a good win.
Good time for all of you. We appreciate your support. So find us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and also make sure you like and subscribe. You can email us at podcast@parkwaybc.net. podcast@parkwaybc.net. Suggest some movies for Ryan to watch and get caught up on.
Because I live in a cave.
Tell us some topics you want us to talk about, and tell us how many people you got to register for you, the first 100 listeners or first 100 subscribers. But we started off with football because we have a special guest with us today. We have Mr. Zach Edson. Welcome aboard.
I appreciate you guys having me.
And Zach is going to talk a little bit about everyone's favorite subject, money, wealth, trying to get some of that. I asked
the real
Stefano.
question is, do they truly grow on trees?
No.
I ask Stefano for a loan every week, and I haven't gotten one yet.
No. We have the guy in the room tonight.
The ATM has arrived.
Yes.
Wow, I don't know who lied to you boys.
Yes. We got the man. Here tonight.
Well, we started talking about football because our special guest, Mr. Money Pockets, Richie Rich himself, according to Fano, has. I don't know if that's true, but I do know this is true. Zach has been to multiple Super Bowls, throwing it back to football.
Mm-hmm.
My wife would say I've been to one. I would say I've been to three. The first one was in Minnesota to watch the Eagles and New England play.
Final's a big Eagles fan over here.
Fly Eagles fly.
Yeah. And I invited him, and he turned me down. He actually stood me up 3 days before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, were you charging face value for these tickets, or?
No, it was just, can you go?
Do I have a rebuttal?
I don't know if you have a rebuttal,
Okay.
but I hope you do, because
there's some backstory.
I am hearing you were offered free tickets to the Super Bowl.
And a flight.
And a flight. I mean, this is like Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy. Okay. You won the grand prize.
Okay.
Your team was in the Super Bowl that year.
And they won.
And you ghosted him.
Okay.
That's what I'm hearing. I don't know.
I have a rebuttal. Is this the time where
I hope
the mic is yours?
Anniversary,
little context.
Something in
little context here. So I am an Eagles fan. So back in, I believe it was 2003 or 2004, these same Philadelphia Eagles with McNabb and Terrell Owens, they played the Patriots, led by Tom Brady. It was in Jacksonville. I looked up the tickets. Nosebleed, I believe, was $1,200. I can't afford that now, especially couldn't afford it then. So I chose to watch it here at my friend Greg Lott's house. They lost, so I was glad that I did not go to the game, because watching your favorite team lose a Super Bowl, the flight home, the experience there around Patriots fans first, the flight home after a loss, the money spent after a loss would be a little much. So fast forward to 15 or 14 or 15 years later, get the opportunity via Zach to go to Minneapolis. Some details were left out. There was a major snowstorm in Minneapolis.
That is true.
It was about negative 20 there.
100% true.
Okay. Playing against the Patriots again, severe underdogs again. So
this is the year they had a backup quarterback, right?
Nick Foles led Eagles against Tom Brady's Patriots. So as much as I would love to go, I'm a diehard Eagles fan to the death of me, but I'm also a realist, and I did not think in any way that they could win that game. I did not want to, even though it was free ride, thank you, Zach. The cold, the potential loss, the flight home was a little bit much for me. So I watched it at my in-laws' house. Had a Super Bowl party there. I could walk out of the room when I wanted to. Didn't have to be around anybody cheering for the Patriots, and they won. I can live with it.
Have you ever been to an Eagles game in person?
I have gone. Another thing. So these are factors. So I'm building here. I have only seen the Eagles win one game in Philadelphia. It was in 2010, right after Lori and I got married. They've only won once. I've gone to 6 Eagles games. 2 against the Titans. 1 in Atlanta. No, 2 in Atlanta, I believe. That 1 in Philly. So I guess I've been to 5. Yeah, I guess they're 1 and 4.
It's not the best percentage.
So I mean, that's in person.
You just played your odds.
Yeah, in person, I'm a jinx, I guess, to them. Who knows? But I didn't want to experience it.
So, are you taking credit for their Super Bowl win?
No.
Oh.
No. Up until
you're just saying you were
not
a jinx.
No, I don't know. I didn't want to be the jinx there at the Super Bowl. I mean, if they had a chance to win, if they had a chance to win that game, I'd rather watch it from my house if I could assure that they were going to win that game, rather than in person. That's a sick way of thinking. I get that. I understand that, but it's a once in a lifetime thing. I understand that too, but a win is worth it, because it can't be taken away, even if I was there or not.
Well, Ryan's been roasted for movies. You've been roasted for the Super Bowl. I don't know what's coming up when it's my turn.
Welcome to the club.
But, Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into the finance world, what you did maybe in college?
I can do that. So I've always had a passion for the stock market, and my parents were heavily involved with that. And they basically at 16, 17 years old when I graduated was, here's the money we have saved for you for college. Go do with it what you like.
I've never heard of a parent doing that before.
Yeah, they gave me the example of you can go buy a new car, you can put a down payment on a house, or you go to school. And it worked out really well because I started working at UBS. I guess prior was Payne Weber, and prior to that was J.C. Bradford, and they paid for college, so that was a good perk for me because I had my parents' money and I had them paying for school.
UBS paid for college.
Yes, they did. So it was real nice. I worked my first job there was basically the guy on the back of your ATM card if you needed balances or help with online access. I worked 10 to 2, 20 hours a week. It was the looking back at that might be the best job I've ever had. And then about a year or two after that, they were going to hire some people and asked me if I wanted to stay on full time, and I did that. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I went to class all day on Tuesday and Thursday. Amanda got out of college. I started a semester before her.
Amanda's your wife,
yes,
for those that don't know.
That's correct. And I graduated a semester early. She finished, and I still went another year. I was having so much fun. She will say it was because I was working full time. I would say I was having fun. But anyway, at UBS, so I guess I did that for like 2 or 3 years, and then I got into a financial advisor associate program where they basically brought in 100 kids and said, hey, you're going to get you licensed. We're going to show you different aspects of finance, from financial planning to sitting on trading desk. And then 2008 happened, and I got to witness my manager in New York get let go, walked out of the building, and I was thinking, this is not good. I mean, there's like 120 kids up here, and all we are is a big cost. They're paying for our rent, giving us a good salary, and I was one of the 7 they kept, and came home, and I was working in Franklin at the time, and there was a manager who became a mentor towards me out of Nashville, and he was like, Zach, why are you driving to Brentwood every day? You live in Hendersonville. Why don't you just come to West End and work? So I started working there as a kind of a quasi-branch manager under him, and it allowed me to see the manager aspect of finance, and then of a brokerage firm, and then P&L, and I got to kind of run my business on the side, which was just the best of all worlds. And he got asked to leave, and I joined a father-son team, and from there I worked with them for 4 or 5 years, and then up until 3 years ago I started working for myself. So I only knew one firm prior to me making the jump to myself.
So you said P&L?
Yeah.
What is that for us uneducated people?
Profit and loss. So I got to see how the business was ran, what was on this side of the balance sheet and this one, what they expenses. It helps you kind of put in a framework of like when you run your own company. Hey, you're paying rent. Hey, you're paying for the lights, not just taking in money. You've got some expenses.
Right.
Fano knows all about that.
Oh yes. World of P&Ls.
So
less glamorous than yours.
Fano's a bigwig manager for a major corporation. For those of you that probably don't know that,
He's way up there.
Yeah.
he carried his company through this pandemic that we've had. So 2008, Zach referenced that. If you're young like Ryan and you were in middle school or something, there was a financial recession in our great nation in 2008.
I was just graduating that year.
You graduated high school in
From
08?
middle
In
school?
2008. No, not middle school. High school. Give me a little bit of credit here. Come on now.
Yeah. Well, he was with. Anyway, let's move on. So, we really want to get into the fun stuff. So
I'm all about the fun.
why don't you tell people what you do now, kind of day to day, some of the things I can't get into everything, but some of the things you do day to day as a advisor today. Is that the right title?
Yeah.
Advisor?
Yeah, that's right. So I mean the non-glamorous things is, dealing with the market, looking at mutual funds or individual stocks or screening 8,000 funds that I do every day. That's not the glamorous part. Working for, what you guys like to talk about, sports, is the glamorous part of my job, because I like going to games. I like helping athletes, because I would like to think I'm trying to buck the trend of them going broke 3 to 5 years after they're done playing. And so getting to see how they spend their money, how they get it, I mean, it's a real eye-opening experience to see. You hear about it and you read about it, you see it on ESPN, but until you actually see a check being deposited every other week for massive amount of money, you just it's not real. But trying to help them is what's fun about this job.
What sports do you have clients that play?
I'm gonna say all the major sports. So MLB, NBA, NFL, and NHL. And then we have several guys that play professional basketball overseas.
So you have to keep up with different salary structures and the way they get paid in all those different sports.
All of it is different. I mean, everybody likes baseball and the NBA because it's all guaranteed money. The NFL is all about, can I get signing bonus up front? NHL is kind of a hybrid. You get kind of a signing bonus, and they say it's guaranteed unless you go through a pandemic, in which case it's not really. The NBA says it's all guaranteed, but not for death. So, there is a lot of different avenues that you have to know if you're going to represent athletes and their money, because there's a lot of moving parts there. It's not like your typical guy that works 9 to 5, or he's a farmer or a doctor or a lawyer. Those things are much easier. They get a salary, the money comes in, but the athletes are much different.
So how detailed are you with the athletes in the service you provide for them versus a regular person, what we would call a regular person with a regular job,
like the regular people around this table,
like the 3 regular average Joes at this table next to you?
It's imagine your life that you guys have, where you're all adults here, and you have a checking account.
Ryan barely made that adulthood.
Everybody but Ryan.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Take notes, son. Take notes.
You get paid.
Brought the pen.
You get paid once every other week, once a month, however you get paid. It comes into your checking account. You have your bills automatically set up. You know what you can live on. You know what you spend. But imagine being 19 or 20 and never set up a checking account. You don't know anything about buying houses. You don't know anything about taxes. You don't know. I mean, you're just you are at such a young age that you become the CEO of yourself. And you've got to trust somebody, right? Because it's more money than probably your parents have seen, and so the first step for them is an agent, and the agent's only looking out for their contract and endorsements that they can sign for you. And so then they a lot of times will find a manager or a financial advisor that kind of has a hybrid role into that. And so details are very important. I mean, I try to see my guys once a month and just kind of break out, hey, look, this is everything you spend on your credit card. These are all the automatic withdrawals. This is all the money that we gave away. This is all the money went to your foundation, business. I mean, we break down every transaction every month, and checks that have cleared. Here's your payroll, here's your endorsements. So I would say details are very important to them because they don't keep up with it. I mean, I try to send them once a week. These are the transactions I see on your credit card. Is this you? And if it's under $100, and I tell them it's for Amazon, the response is, I guess. Like, I mean, they no clue.
I don't even know what the right term is, but you're basically a pseudo parent, because you were, for some of these guys, I don't want to speak for all of them, but for some of them, you are actually paying all their bills.
And there's a lot of hand-holding.
You are supporting their family. If they have family that they've set up financially, you're supporting them.
They have
paying
zero
their bills.
responsibilities, basically, because of you.
They want to know, like, hey, when I'm in season, right, everything is going to be taken care of, and then they're going to see it, but they're not responsible. I mean, from the phone calls to, it could be anything from a pool cleaning service to moving cars across the country, selling real estate, buying real estate, helping family buy real estate, make sure it's titled in the right name. There's a lot of factors there that go into it, but so I need to be detailed.
How often are you checking? So you said once a week. You're kind of following up with them. You meet with them once a month.
Mm-hmm.
how much time do you spend checking account balances for for clients?
Absorbent in an amount of time. Like, I don't know. Looking back at it,
Is
I don't
that
know
a daily task?
So like in the morning, I run through what the balance was last night into today to get a difference, and then I kind of take that difference and see what came out to make sure those numbers match up. Look at the credit card because that's not due to pull out on a certain day, so I kind of keep a running tally of that. And then on paydays, I see what comes in. I keep up with their endorsements if they get paid once a quarter or monthly. So yeah, I mean it's not the 9 to 5, right? I mean, it's probably like,
We're literally wasting his time right now.
Yes.
He could be doing
Yes.
stuff right
Yes.
now, but no, you decided to join us, so I appreciate that.
Somebody is spending a ton of money right now.
We have a great episode on anxiety. You can go back and listen to that when this is over and ease some of your symptoms there. But are you basically their ATM? Like, how do they get money? If you're handling all their finance, can they just take a debit card to an ATM, or do they call you, or what's the? We're in fantasy land right now, so we're trying to.
So I mean, no different than everybody at this table, right? I mean, I set up a checking account for them with me that has a debit card, and I link most of the time I use an American Express Black Card, so I can get a bigger limit than what I could on a typical credit card.
Sorry, what's a black card?
Yeah, what's that? Besides, I know what the color is, but
I know it's
Oh,
heavy.
He's taking his wallet out
heavy.
for those of you
So
listening.
this is what it does.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard that, but
I did.
I'm
I did. Yeah. About cracked the table.
It's a slab of metal here. I'm going to hold the microphone up to it. So, yeah,
it blew
okay.
my ears.
So after we establish a checking account with a credit card, debit card, everything tied to it, I then will have another account where all their bills hit and keep it separate from their direct deposit because I don't want, one day they lose that debit card or somebody comes in their house and then just starts going crazy. Lessons I have learned, right? I used to tie all their bills to their credit card, and then I realized about once a month they would lose that credit card. Well, then who gets to reset up Comcast and water and electric and all that? So now it's just auto drafted out of the checking account because they don't take checks with them, so I don't have to worry about them losing that. So they have access to everything in the account, and then they've got the credit card, obviously, that they run on day to day, and then we have an investment account for them. If they have children, we have 529s for education for them. In most of my clients' cases, I have family, so that's mom and dad, brothers and sisters. If they have a business, which most athletes do, to put their endorsement money in so it gets taxed at a lower rate. Then we have foundations that they give money to for basketball camps and things that they're interested in. So, I mean, you could see where it could get big, right? I mean, a typical client that has one or two accounts with me, an athlete probably has 20 or so. So, I mean, it's a big undertaking.
I mean, you probably have guys across the nation, and maybe, if they're playing in a basketball league overseas or something, different time zones, obviously. So what is your phone on all the time?
It's all the time. No 9 to 5. It makes it really hard if I ever went like on a cruise or something where I didn't have Wi-Fi or access to things. So, yeah, I mean, it's 24/7 because you think about people and their money, and they want to be accessible, and so that's one thing that I try to preach to people is like, here's my cell phone number, right? Most bankers or financial advisors is 8 to 5, right? When they leave, call me tomorrow. But when I have their banking and their debit card quits working, like they're not waiting on hold, right? They're just calling me, and so then I get to wait on hold. But it's something that I established so long ago that I can't go back on it for existing clients. Now, for future clients, that's something that I'm taking a hard look at of like, hey, like you pay me to manage your money, not to, be your banker. But it's funny that most athletes want the banking and don't care about the investments of what they pay me on. They just want to know, does this debit card work? And who do I call if it doesn't?
1-800 number on the back. That's where I used to work in college when I got started. Try one of those guys.
So I'm trying to think how to best word this. Do you spend more time on one particular account, like one person, client, than others? Not because they have more accounts with you, per se, but just because they need their hand held just a little bit more?
I would say a majority of my regular clients, I see, I talk to them every day or once a week, once a month. But an athlete, I'm going to talk to somebody in that family every day. I mean, there's just so many moving pieces, to people going on vacation, to, I mean, you just name it, anything that goes on in your life, from a car wreck to, you know, traveling, buying furniture. I mean, you name it, big or small. I'm involved with in some facet with an athlete.
Nice.
I know that it's financial advisor. How are they when you have to advise, and maybe, I know you can't say no because it's their money, but what about your suggestions to them? Are they, the most of your clients that you have, is it well received? Do they listen to you most of the time, or do they? I know that might be an odd question.
No, I'd say most of them. I mean, that's what I tell them, right? Like, you know, if you ever had a business opportunity, or one of your buddies from school wants to start this company, you need to have some safeguards in there, because their gut reaction is, yes, I want to help the people that are around me to better themselves. But I always tell them, like, if they're not willing to put in the time to get you a business plan, or they don't know what that is, then you probably need to move on, right? And most of my clients that are athletes will say, look, pitch it to Zach, and if he thinks it's good, then we'll talk about it. Or, you know, hey, I can't give you money this month because, you know, my allocation for gifting, I've already met it. So, you know, I'll try to help. But they use me as kind of a buffer to their family. And then, but it's, I mean, like today, I had a client that just came home from overseas, and they won a championship in Japan, and I didn't even know they had basketball in Japan. But so he was like, I'm going to get a significant bonus, so I'm going to go buy this jewelry. And so he goes and buys the jewelry. We hadn't even got the check yet. And then today he's like, hey, I'm going to take a trip to Hawaii. So we get that booked. And he was like, so hopefully my check covers that. And then I got an email today from the team that it's like half of that. So I'm like, you know that you've spent double what came in. And he knows it, but he, you know, he rationalizes it somehow. So I would say that, yes, they call me, and you know, I push back when I can, but it's not something that, you know, I just tell them, hey, this is the budget for this month. This is where you're at, and you know, some of them are better at it than others.
So what happens if somebody runs out of money? What would you do for them in that case?
Has that ever happened?
I've only had one that's on the verge, and that's going to be painful for me, because he's made into the seven figures. He's done very well, but you know, much like most athletes, right? When they come from rags to riches so quick, and then they bring people along with them, they can't tell them no. And so he goes overseas and makes great money, but he comes home and it's a nonstop party. He can't cut it off, and every year he's making less, but the lifestyle is still at the top where it was when he was making the top dollar that he was making. And so he just keeps whittling down the principal, and he's not going to have much left. I mean, most guys think that, hey, when the game is over, I'm going to go and be, you know, Charles Barkley or Shaquille O'Neal on TNT. And the reality is nobody knows who you are, and you're going to go back to coaching high school basketball making, you know, much less than what you're making now. So it's tough.
What's the difference between the sports as far as their pay, or is there a difference if you got a client who is a basketball player in the NBA versus a client who is an NFL football player?
Basketball, as far as like what they make, I mean, it ranges, right? I mean, you know, the contracts are so. I would say probably the richest contract in the NFL right now is probably either Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson.
Patrick Mahomes, right? Isn't that Patrick Mahomes?
He's got a big deal, like 250. No, his is like $400 million, right? But it's a lifetime deal.
$500 million.
So you take somebody like that and stretch it out over the years. So it's a 10-year deal, so like $50 million a year, roughly.
He's what, 20?
I don't know. He's got that ketchup endorsement. I don't know if it's Heinz or what, too. But they're throwing some money at him.
Mercy.
Couple nickels.
Mercy.
I would say that they all. You can make great money in all of them, obviously, but what I find is football money is harder for those guys to manage because they only get 16 game checks. So, you know, from when the season starts, late August, early September, they start getting paid every week. Well, when the season's over in January, they don't get another game check until next September. So they've got to make their money last all year long, which is no different than the rest of us, other than we get paid year round. But so you take an NFL player that gets drafted, and most of them get significant signing bonuses because they want that money up front. Well, then they go, after half of it goes for taxes, then they go buy the house, the cars, the toys, and then if they have any lifestyle in the season, they are struggling, into next season because now their salary is almost like minimum salary in the NFL because they front loaded it with a signing bonus. So football is hard. Basketball, it's paid year round, which is really nice. Baseball is per game, but they play so many games. I mean, it's like 162 games or something. So they get paid a lot all the way around. And NHL is just through the season, so it's like October to April. So I would say NBA is the best and NFL is the worst.
When you do this for athletes, when they call you, what are some of the problems they're having? Is it just, hey, I'm out celebrating, or I'm out celebrating and I need some more money, or I'm buying a house and I need you to set up the mortgage payments or whatever you would do?
I mean, there's really nothing that, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. I mean, you take a kid that's, just straight out of the draft, and the first thing on his mind is, he's getting a suit for draft night, and then after that he's got to report to team training camp, so he's got to get there, and usually the team flies him there. But after that, it's like, he gets shuttled off to the team of like, hey, do you want an apartment? Do you want a condo? Do you want a house? Here's your direct deposit, or here's your signing bonus, and where do I put it? They are just, you can imagine if you were 18, 19 years old, and all of a sudden, you just signed a $30 or $40 million contract, and they're going to give you, 10% of it up front. What would you do, and who would you turn to? I think we would all say our parents, but in their case, sometimes they're trying to shelter that a little bit from mom and dad or friends. But in their case, their life is much more public than ours, right? You just get on Google and you can see what they make. So there's no secrets. The thing that they have to try to educate their friends on is when they need things and they say, well, man, you made $30 million this year, you can help me, and then they start telling them, well, that's the big number, right? I see half of that, and then I live and I bought a house, and so the education for me for them is much different than it is for my typical client, because my typical client they're adults, right? They understand, they know what they're investing in, they know how much they've got to save, they pay their own bills, so it's just a different culture.
That's amazing to me that you have to pay their bills and kind of do that kind of stuff. You're like a butler almost, a financial butler.
The real question is, can I afford you?
We're going to get into some regular person financial talk, before this is over. But we're trying to get to all these big grand Hollywood movie stories out there here at the beginning.
Since you work for yourself now, how do you market yourself? If that makes sense, like there's an athlete, how do you know that they're looking? Is it just like word of mouth, I assume, or?
Yeah, I kind of fell into this, to be honest. Most of my clients were just regular clients, and we started basically we were helping 401ks for companies. So, if you have a 401k through your employer, you have a select group of funds, and then an advisor will come in and help you select those based on your risk profile. And so those were all of my clients, because it was almost like a built-in referral system. Like I get into the company, every time they hire on an employee, they've got to call me. And gotcha. So that's how we built it with me and this father-son. And then I had a friend that was going to be trying to be an agent, and he asked me to come down there and meet one of his clients or prospect clients, and I was like, yeah, I love sports, they need help. And from there it went to a referral. From there was a guy that worked at a gym that worked out an NFL player, and then from there it just kind of snowballed from there. Mm-hmm. But I think I've made connections with probably, I'm going to say, the top 10 NBA agents. I'm going to say probably the top 10 NFL agents. I mean, it's a small network, so once you're in there, everybody kind of knows everybody, and there's thousands of Zachs out there. I mean, there's just not there's not a one trick. I mean, I don't care if you work for yourself, and custodian the assets somewhere else, like a Raymond James, like what I do, or you work at UBS or Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, we all can do the same thing, right? I mean, we all can invest in individual stocks, mutual funds, ETF. We all buy the same thing. So then what does it come down to? Well, I can't imagine too many guys giving out my cell phone number, available 24/7. So I'd like to think that sets me apart. And then I get to decide what I charge, right? And at a big firm, they kind of have thresholds and what they can charge. So if I wanted to win business because of price, I feel like I could do it. But I'm at a stage now where it's mainly referrals, and then I want the quality athlete, not just the athlete that's going to blow through all the money. That doesn't help anybody, right? And so I guess that's a long-winded answer to tell you that it's basically referrals at this point.
Gotcha.
But I'm not going to AAU games and hanging out with coaches and college coaches and trying to get in, because that game has changed. You think about like how players are getting paid now at such an early age, and you got the G League that's right after, so you don't have to go to college. I think you're going to see this likeness and name and image pass this July, where you can start, selling your autographs or pictures or getting sponsorships on social media. So then a kid is really going to have a tough choice of like, hey, I get paid to go to college and I get the college experience, or I don't go to college because I don't want to go to class. Do I go to the G League or do I go overseas? I mean, there's just going to be more options for kids, and I don't have the answer. I just, there's going to be different avenues for them to make money.
What sets you apart from a manager? Because listening, you're doing I would consider you a manager, even though you're just a financial advisor, but you're doing, for my novice ears, more than what someone at a big firm would do, obviously.
100%. So there's some gray there of, I'm not out there looking for an endorsement deals, and that's what they kind of tout, but I could argue that's the agent's job. The manager is supposed to be some type of bridge. I view him as like the quarterback of their team, and if that means like they've got realtors or they've got a financial advisor, they've got a tax person, they obviously have an attorney, I would think the manager is kind of like the hub of the wheel, and he knows all the players, but like the buck stops with him. So there's some gray lines with some of my clients of like, I handle more of things that I shouldn't for them, just because they either don't have that person in their life, or they feel like everything's working well now. Why bring another person into the fold that we don't know? But there's definitely times where I feel like the manager can be setting up the bills, he can be doing everything, but then that opens up some holes that could open them up for security or mismanaging of their funds, because if they become power of attorney or they get credit cards on the account, there's just an extra layer there that the player's got to be real comfortable with, that he's given somebody else access to. Whereas with me, it's them, and I don't have access to anything other than moving it to their accounts. So I think it just gives them peace of mind that it's really just them.
So, not saying that you're controlling or anything, but do you like that you're in control for these kids, like for these people? I mean, some of them are probably kids or were kids at one point. So, do you feel like you have the better knowledge of this because you have the experience already before them, so to help them out in the situations?
I mean, that's like when I meet parents for the first time, in this business with regular clients, they want to know, how many years you've been doing it and how much money you manage. That's kind of like their big thing. But with athletes, it's like, tell me I'm not the only one. Like, give me names of people that you've worked for. And so you have to be doing it, because they all don't want to be the token kid that they put their trust in, and you don't know what it takes. And that's why I feel like if upstairs, so I work in the same building that I used to downtown, and there's 50 advisors upstairs, and I feel in my heart of hearts, if somebody walked through there and said, hey, I play for the Titans and I'm looking for a financial advisor, 50 people would come running down there, but not one of them knows what it takes and what's entailed, because all they see is, I want to manage their money and they're a professional athlete, and that would be fun. But there's a lot that goes into it, because the banking aspect for them is what's important, right? The investments are secondary, which is the complete opposite of when they're done playing. It's all about the investments, and they can start to, I can pay my own bills, or I can pay for I can be an adult now. But it's hard, because they play so long, and then in the off season they want to shut it down and take a trip, and then like this year, I think about this year in the NBA, of them basically playing until, they're still playing in the playoffs, and then they're going to go to Tokyo for the Olympics, and then they're going to start this year's season back on a normal track in October. So you're going to be done late August. You have training camp September the 15th, and then you start the season October 15th. So these guys are playing year-round, and people that don't know would be like, well, Zach, I work year-round. Like, what's the difference? But, they're different, right? I mean, they're on the road every other night. They got to take care of their body. They got to eat right. I mean, it's just – they get compensated well, but it's a full job. I mean, they got trainers with them on the road and just always in the gym. So it's just a different life. It's just a different life.
So if you have a professional athlete that they've been your client, you've managed them through their career, and they retire, would they continue to stick with you? Every case is going to be different, but
I would hope so. I mean, because I'm still managing the money. They may not. My hope would be that they could become an adult and start taking on some of the responsibilities, but I'm sure in their eyes it's I'm already paying you, but at some point it's you can handle this. Like, I can take care of the investments of what you pay me to do, but you can handle the rest of it. But if they're not paying for the service, why would they want to give that up, right? It's like, Zach will always be here. And so it's I don't know the answer to that. I've got some at the end of their career now, but I would like to think that I would see them until either there's no money or they can handle it on their own. It's almost like a parent in one way of, like, I've seen them through the good, the bad. Most of them are what I would consider family. I mean, I've seen them from getting out of high school to college to, first child to married to, moving around the country and their parents. And so it's I have a tight knit of relationships that I would think that something's got to happen to me or them for that to be broken.
But when they stop getting those game checks, if they live off the money they made as a pro athlete, how would that change, or would that change for you?
No, it shouldn't change, other than instead of checks coming in, it's me moving money from their investments over, and that's an education for them, because if you're fortunate to play professionally until you're, let's just say, mid-30s. That money has to last you for longer than you've been alive, right? I mean, it's got to get you to 59 before you can hit your pension or your 401k, and then, the rest of your life. And so the expectations at that point change of, like, hey, how much I was making then to dial it down to this is what it takes to live. And so I think I'm probably needed more at the end, because right now it's like, oh, there's another check coming in. There's no, I can't spend what I have coming in, but they're not thinking 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road when they've got kids in college and trying to figure that out. So and it goes back to education, right? Because they don't understand about 401k matches or things that all the benefits they have and perks they have access to is not important to them right now, because it's just they're making so much that the additional money just doesn't faze them.
What are some of the employee perks that a professional athlete would have that may surprise us, or just may be the same perks that a regular working person would have, just compounded or a bigger slice of the pie?
I think I think about the NFL that they get a tough rap because NFL players their body gets banged up, but I mean they get I think it's $25,000 a year in an HSA account for healthcare, right? So I mean even if they had to go get supplemental health insurance, I dare say if they played 5 or 6 years, I mean that should get them there, right? They're the 401ks for NFL. I want to say it's 2 for 1, and the NBA's 2 something and 1, maybe like 2.5 or 3 to 1. So I mean they've got great money, but again, if you talk to an NBA player and they say, well, Zach, I can't afford. My first client told me that he could not afford to put, I think at the max at the time was like $15,000 in a 401k. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't afford it? And he was like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, what's a lot of money to you? And his first game check was like $60,000 or something. And I'm like, you're not going to miss. And he was like, no, you're right. I'm not going to miss it. But he was like, well, can I do that every check? And I'm like, no, it's one time, and then you're going to get 2 for 1. So your 15 becomes 45. And then he looked at me like, who cares? Like, what, 45,000? Like, that's nothing. And then I try to tell him, well, over the course of 10 more years, and what that's going to grow to if it, So they just don't know. And so trying to walk them through that is somebody has to, right? And some of the agents do a good job. Other agents, all they care about is getting them their next contract, because that's how they get paid. But if you take time to invest and teach them, I don't have any clients that are just like, no, I don't want to do that. At the end of the day, they're paying me to help them, right? So I try to educate them as much as I can, and at the end of the day, they got to make the decision. But it usually comes down, well, what would you do? And so,
Well, I think we've kind of run the gamut of some of the behind the scenes of pro athlete finances, but we would be remiss if we did not take a chance to give you the opportunity to tell any horror stories that you may be able to tell. Names have been changed to protect the innocent, maybe. So we're not putting you on the spot for, Ryan G did this. But if you can remove some names and maybe tell a story or two, or tell names if you, we're all about, full transparency, but we don't want to get you in trouble.
There was security is a big deal, with my clients and knowing what's coming out of the account, what's going. And we had a baseball player that was at training camp, and he was down in Tampa, and at the time he had a house cleaner, and he had a lot of valuables from MacBooks to tag watches, a Rolex, just big ticket items. And we had a house cleaner steal his checkbook and write a check to herself. And so, nobody said, crooks were smart, but
she didn't have a financial advisor showing her how to make this work. She went to public school.
I was trying to think of other big things that y'all would find funny, but the only other one that comes to mind is there's a show called Top Gear that deals with high-end cars, and a client of mine was playing basketball overseas, and he somehow ran across these guys and that portrayed themselves as part of Top Gear, and that you can buy shells of high-end cars. And I don't know why you would do that, because then you're left with like a Honda engine and a Lamborghini or something, and you get left at the red light. But anyway, he pushed for it, and I was like, look, this wire is going to go to Panama, and I don't feel confident that I can't get it back if it goes. And he was like, no, they're telling me it'll be there by the time I get home. It takes like 8 weeks. And I'm like, I Googled the place, and it ends up like the shack, and I don't even know like how cars can be made out of there. And sure enough, we wired the money, and we never saw a penny of it. Said same client went shopping in Milan for clothes, and we had to crate them home. Not ship them, but crate them. And, they just...
It's a lot of clothes.
It's a lot of clothes if you need a crate.
A lot of expensive clothes.
You could take every piece of clothing I've earned in my had in my entire life, and I probably wouldn't need a crate. I don't even know how big a crate is, but I'm going to say I don't need one.
Yeah.
I can't...
duffel bag would get me.
I can't think of any big stories that we have clients that buy expensive watches. There was a client that he wanted to buy a Rolex, and he didn't want to spend the money, or he thought he wanted to spend the money. And I was up there for All-Star Weekend, and the watch was like $75,000, and he was going back and forth. Should he buy it? Should he afford it? And I'm like, at the end of the day, you can afford whatever, you can afford whatever, but, what are you going to do with it? He already had a different brand of watch. And so he was like, well, my shoe deal is if I win MVP tonight, they'll give me $100,000. And so he was like, so if I get that, can I get the watch? And I'm like, it's your money. So, I didn't want to get off into the weeds of, 100 really becomes 50. So we're still 25 short. But he went out there and won MVP and got the watch. I mean, it's funny to me that athletes, you tell them not to do something and they're going to try real hard to do it, right? You can't run through that wall, and they will die trying. And
it's the motivation thing, the challenge thing. Michael Jordan always said he would make something up, or this guy said this about me or whatever. Just because he's looking for some kind of motivation, because any pro season is a long season, whether you're playing 60 or 16 games, 17 games now, or 162. It's still a long season, so you need that motivation. But I guess a $75,000 watch, to me, that's That's a house. Like
Yeah.
that's part of a house right there.
It is.
There's,
Can be.
again, it goes back to the
On your
education,
wrist.
right? Of like, I have a client that bought a substantial house, 10,000 plus square foot in Minnesota, and now he lives in San Francisco. And he called me with the realtor and said, "This can't be right. Like, they're showing me houses that are half my size for triple the price." I'm like, "Welcome to the West Coast." Like, I mean, what do you want me to tell you? And so, but they just don't know. I asked said client last week of like, what's gas in California right now? I don't know. Like, the card worked. Like, no clue, right? And it's over $5. Just no clue. So they're just different. And I try to put myself in their shoes. If I was 20 plus years old and had the world at my hands, right? What appears to be at my hands, I don't know that I would be any different.
What would be a difference now that we've seen behind the scenes of athletes? If Ryan walked in, or Fano or myself walked in, and we were 25 years old, starting out, first career, kind of big boy job. Hey, I want to prepare for my future. What would you start? How would you start just a regular guy with a regular person, guy or girl, with a regular job? What would be your advice to them if they came to see you?
It's different for everybody, but I would say, you would want to establish some type of understanding of a budget-like, philosophy. And if you're married, being on the same page with your wife is important. But
Or husband. If
right?
you're a wife coming to see Zach.
Which I would say that most men control the finances, as wrong as that is, or right. But it also is proven that men die first, so then the woman is going to take over, and if they're in the dark, it's a learning curve for them. But I would say to get on some type of budget, right, and just live within your means. It sounds so simple, but some people just can't do it. For me, I've got friends that just can't understand, Zach, why you run everything on your credit card, right? And because they feel like I won't pay it, and then I'll get so far behind. And you just have to be diligent, because in my eyes, I'm not giving up the 1.5 or 2% that I get for every transaction I make on my credit card. And number two, the safety of it. If somebody steals my credit card number, I don't care, right? Let Visa worry about it. Send me a new one. Whereas if they got my debit card, fighting with a bank to get my money back is much different. And you need a debit card because of getting cash out. I understand that. But I think if you can get on the same page with your spouse and then come up with a plan of, this is important now. And if that means getting a house or setting goals to take care of cars and getting out of debt, that's probably where I would start. If you had a grown-up job and you have benefits, and we start talking about, are you contributing enough for retirement? If you have kids, should you be setting up 529 accounts to take care of education? You can expound upon after the budget and, how are we living? Because then you can get off in the weeds of, should I be paying off my house faster? Should I refinance with rates under 3%? There's just a lot of things that you could get off on, but I feel like, if you set the foundation of, this is the money we have, this is what we want to save for, and then retirement or whatever that goal is, that's where I would start.
And something you said, we talked earlier, one of your first points to us was take the free money. Mm-hmm. If you have an employer who offers 401k or whatever, take the free money.
Absolutely. I mean, that's probably the first place you would start, because if, again, you're probably not going to get the $1 per dollar or $2 for everyone like an athlete would, but, most jobs give something. If it's, 0.25% or $1 per dollar up to 6%, because if you put in, and I'm just for easy math here, if you make $100,000 and you get to put in $6,000, right? So you put in $6,000, and they're going to match it $1 per dollar, so they give you $6,000. If you do nothing with your $6,000 except put it in cash, you've immediately got 100% return, right? So you should get every penny that they're willing to do. And the biggest rebuttal I hear about that is, Zach, I can't afford to do that. If you start early, it's very easy not to miss that money. If you wait later and try to catch up, it becomes, because you've adjusted your lifestyle to needing that, and so it's hard to go. It's hard to go back.
So when you get your first big boy or big girl job, if you take that off right away from the get-go, you never miss it, because you never knew anything other than that.
Right.
Yeah.
to put a church angle like on that of if you start tithing early, right, you never miss it. And so then if you as you make more money, it's just habit versus trying to do it once you've made money, because you'll never make enough, right? There'll always be something. So it's just to train you early to be diligent enough to do it.
There's always something. Ford had a new truck. I was reading an article. They have a new hybrid truck coming out. I was like, man, I could really use
the Maverick.
The Maverick.
Mm.
My brother-in-law wants that thing so bad.
It looked nice, and they make it affordable. It's only $20,000 for the base model.
I'm going to tell you something that I tell all my clients. So my grandparents, my parents, aunts and uncles have all retired from Ford. So. And I tell my clients this too. If you ever go get a new Ford, you should call me, because I make my parents wait on hold to get the little PIN number, but you get the A-plan price, right? So it saves you, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, whatever it is. And so my dad hates it because he's like, Zach, I think last year I bought like 15 cars for clients of mine through Ford, but each parent and each person gets like 15 a year. So I could literally buy like 60 cars on this deal every year, but they hate it because it's like they wait on HR hold for ever. And
Zach, you and I need to go to lunch one day soon and discuss my financial future.
Have yourself a Maverick.
Maybe my automotive future. That would be great. You're buying, by the way.
Father's Day.
So,
Right
not to
Just
backtrack or anything, but you did bring in the whole Christian aspect of this, and that's why we're here, is to bring that Christian aspect to these random everyday topics, right? But do you ever feel like there's a gray area when someone's asking you to clear money and you think, okay, my morals say this is not the right thing to do? It could be buying a car and you're like, hey, you can't afford that, you need to buy something cheaper. Or they're in Las Vegas and they're going to do something inappropriate and you're like, hey, that's not the right thing and I don't want to hit this button to push this money through. Does that ever... Is there a gray area there where you're like, I have to say yes, but at the same time, you don't want to or don't need to?
For purchases, probably not, because at the end of the day, I advise them, but they have to make that decision. I think where my moral compass gets off would be, I don't remember how many years ago we had the revival, 6, 7 years ago. It's been a while, but I was really convicted of, am I at the right place? If somebody saw Zach coming out of a club at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, regardless that, I don't drink, but, the perception is, what are you doing at that right. time, right?
Exactly.
And so it's hard for me because I have clients that have, crosses and they've got tattoos and and then I see them because of social media, right? If it's on Instagram or Twitter, all the things. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm sure they are. To see them do things, it's hard because they know where I stand on topics,
right.
But I don't know that I have done a good enough job to, persuade them is not the right word, but just to educate them on, hey, you need to know what that cross stands for that you're wearing, or hey, do you know what that tattoo? So I'm going to say I don't do a good enough job, but they all know where I stand, I guess is the best way I know how to put that.
Good. Nice.
So we have young children here. Let's finish with, we always want to make, or I shouldn't assume for you all, but for me, I want to do better than my parents did. And I want my children to do better than me. So setting up college funds, if you could talk about that just a little bit, kind of what goes into that, and some details, because that was something I was never educated on. But you really don't care before you have kids, obviously. But what's some of the baby steps to kind of get that started, or what that entails, and how to go about doing that?
So it's no different than like everybody has a checking account, everybody has a savings account. If you branch out now, you've got an investment account. So an education account for a child is just called a 529, which basically means it's kind of like an IRA for education. So for every dollar you put in and it grows, let's say your dollar becomes $10, as long as you use that money for education, it's not taxed. So now they don't go to school. You can change the beneficiary. So you can make it. And 529s now are much more loose, right? So like they can pay for private school now. They can do books. They can do computers. you can get your money out of them. But I mean, to open up a 529, I mean, you can do it anywhere. I mean, I don't care if it's at a bank. You can do it, through Ameritrade. You can do it through, Raymond James. I mean, you can do it anywhere. So I have 2 accounts for Zoe, which is basically I have a 529 and then I have an UPMA. The UPMA is, in my mind, I was using that, it's her money at 21. Right, so like I direct it, but then at 21 it's hers. But I've always thought, that would be for a car, or that would be for wedding or something that I could still use it before it really became hers at 21. And then I have an education account too. So those would be the 2 I would look at for children.
So each bank, if you're Bank of America or a credit union or something, they all have those accounts.
They would all have them. Yes, they would all have them. Or you could do them online through Fidelity or America. I mean, every big bank brokerage would be able to open up either one.
All right. Well, Zach, we appreciate you coming. We appreciate the stories, and more so, we appreciate just the education. And we hope that you all get something out of this, and you're able to help yourself or better yourself financially. And thanks again. And next time you come on, we hope you have some stories. We'll give you a little advance notice. You can come with the real stories, and and we'll have story time with Zach, and we'll talk about how he and I went to lunch, and he got me a brand new Ford Maverick for $18 and change.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah.
But we finish each week with a Bible verse, and Zach, we didn't want to put that pressure on you since your first time, but if you come back next time, we might do that. But today Ryan's going to bail you out.
Yeah, so today's verse is from Luke 18, verse 25, and it says, "For it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God." And what that means to me is like, you can go out there and work every single day and make money and do all this stuff, but at the end of the day, when you leave this earth, you're not taking that with you. You're going to a better place that money doesn't exist. Like it's dirt on the ground,
value.
So that's what it means to me.
That's a good verse, because I relay that differently to my clients. Of I've never seen a U-Haul at a funeral home, so you can't take anything with you. And so what are you doing now to make a difference? That storing it up does nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, boys, that's the end of another one. I think we did pretty well for ourselves. So thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The first 100 people that like our YouTube channel,
get to clicking,
fellas, girls,
children,
Grant.
Yeah, and tell your friends and family. If you get all 10 people that live in your household or neighbors or whatever, that you're just upping your own odds.
Yep.
Because you can probably get a piece of that gift card if they win it.
Oh, yeah.
Cha-ching.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we will see you all next week on GPS to God.
Good job.
Told you, it goes by fast.
It does.
Thank you for listening to GPS to God. Please leave us a rating on iTunes, and also subscribe on YouTube, and hit the bell if you'd like to receive notifications when new episodes air.